Welcome back everyone. The third part of the video. The Triple Alliance was formed in 1882, among Germany, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Italy. These three countries had promised mutual support to each other if any of the great powers were attacked. The second major alliance was formed in 1907, called the Triple Entente, among Great Britain, France and Russia. The original reason behind forming these alliances was imperialism. Since the countries were trying to capture the other countries, they'd later feel jealous when some other country captured more countries. They were constantly worried that if such and such country captured any particular region, they would need to capture more to protect themselves. This was all they did. In this case, how did the commoners fare? Why would the commoners fight among themselves for their rulers? Did the people want World War I? Friends, the answer to this is mostly number. But the commoners were still pushed into the war. The first reason was that the job of the soldier then was for the poor. A common man would become a soldier, put his life at risk, for the greed of the ruler. Why would someone want to do this? To earn money. For the lack of employment. The people that couldn't get employed anywhere else, looked for jobs as soldiers in these countries. It is a different matter to fight a war to protect one's country, but to capture another country, to invade another country, why would anyone want to fight in a war? From where would they get the motivation? The answer to this is the propaganda that used to be spread then. Linguistic nationalism. The newspapers and media at the time created an image that to enlist oneself in the army was a noble profession, labeling it as a selfless service for the country. Soldiers were shown as gentlemen, disciplined heroes. The media started glorifying war. For example, Britain had gone on the Crimean War against Russia once, and because of a failed military action, 200 British soldiers were killed. But the newspaper exaggerated it so much to highlight it in the article that was printed in the Times, London. Even though the top leadership made horrible decisions in the battle, due to which soldiers had to lose their lives, it was still shown as a heroic act. The monarch of Britain appointed an official poet, Alfred Tennyson. He wrote the poem The Charge of the Light Brigade. This was one of the first poems in the world that showed a soldier as a hero. Another famous English poet, Rupert Brooke, his poems The Soldier, The Dead, portrayed war and death as glorious things. He lost his life in World War I. And Winston Churchill used his poem as a death note, to recruit more people. This was the type of warmongering propaganda that was spread then. It was shown that going on a war for your country was a great act. I'm putting quotes on country here because there wasn't a democratic country there. The country referred to the rule of the emperor, and you were basically going on a war for the ruler. But not everyone fell under the influence of the propaganda. There were many people in these countries who were completely against the war. America's Socialist Party, the Italian Socialist Party, British Labour Party, Russia's Bolsheviks, Karl Liebknecht and Rosa Luxemburg in Germany. Apart from them, there were many other groups of people, like the anarchists and syndicalists who believed in internationalism. Some people opposed the war on the basis of religion and humanity, like Henry Ford and Valentin Bulgakov. Additionally, there were poets and intellectuals like Rudyard Kipling as well against the war. You'd recognize him as the author of The Jungle Book. Against the poem The Charge of the Light Brigade, he wrote a counter-poem, The Last of the Light Brigade. It highlights the inhumane conditions that a soldier has to go through while fighting in a war. Similarly, there were poems by Wilfred Owen, that showed the bitter truth of the war. Poisonous fumes, wounded limbs, coughing blood. If you can truly understand the conditions that a soldier has to go through in war, then you would never look at war with enthusiasm. Perhaps the most legendary anti-war poem was written by Thomas Hardy, in 1909. The Man He Killed. In this poem, he focuses on a soldier that has killed another soldier because both were unemployed. They had no work, driven by the need to earn money for their family. They enlisted as soldiers, fought for their country, looked at each other and shot at one another. But had the same two people met each other in a restaurant in one of their countries, perhaps they would have merrily sang together and dined and reveled together. These are the reasons, friends, that every soldier that fought in World War I did not come under the influence of the terrible warmongering, and we witnessed several cases of mutinies. There was a case in France where an entire battalion gave up their arms because they didn't want to fight in the war. In Russia, The soldiers waged a war against their rulers. But the Christmas truce of 1914 was the most interesting case. While the war was going on in 1914, come Christmas, the British and German soldiers came together to celebrate Christmas on the battlefield. They exchanged food, sang together and celebrated together. Because these common folks literally had no reason to fight in this war. But then their commanders ordered them to stop celebrating and to continue with the war. They started punishing the soldiers. If they refused to fight, they would be shot down by their own troops. If someone deserts from the battles, they would be punished when caught. The soldiers were given such punishments by the country they were fighting for, to force them to fight in the war. Eventually, World War I happened. And let's talk about the countries that fought in World War II and the countries that won, and India's involvement in this geopolitical game. I hope you found this video informative. Let's meet in the next video.